Hi, I'm back for part 2 of my story, my aging out of foster care story. Okay, let's see. And I just wanted to preface this. I know that the first video was really hard for me. I was having really bad anxiety. I was constantly breaking down and crying, so I had to pause the video. So I apologize for that. I'm going to try to do better in this video, and I apologize for my art mess in the background. I like to do art and finally got the markers out of my fingers. So yeah, where I left off was in the story was when the Amish family came and took my youngest son from the hospital. Because they are Amish, I'm also really trying not to judge them at the same time, but I know how most Amish are. And it scares me that I know that they are raising my kid Amish. There are some things that are really good about the Amish, but when it comes to religion and the shunning and the, whatever the negative parts of Amish lifestyle, I don't want that to affect my kid. If my kid is anything like me, they will get shunned, and I don't want that for my kid. I want my kid to understand that they could always come to me and that I will always be a safe space. But it's just scary that my kid's mind is going to be altered with religion, and he might not feel like he has a safe space to talk or to get help for any reason, because the Amish, they don't believe in being gay or LGBTQ, and I just think of every scenario that could happen. I know that my kid is very young, but I don't want my kid growing up to hate certain things. I want him to be open-minded and loving and kind and strong. I just don't want that lifestyle for him that the Amish have. I think their lifestyle on, canning and working with animals and having their business, because a lot of them have their own businesses and stuff. I think that's great. I think there's a lot of good qualities of the Amish. It's just a lot of the negative ones kind of trump the good, and that just makes me nervous. So I started having regular once a week visits with my son, and with my youngest son, and normally it was okay. So for every visit, I brought a diaper bag filled with diapers and wipes and all that stuff. And I know with my first case, I stopped doing that because it was a lot of work, and the foster family was bringing stuff. But with my second kid, they were bringing stuff, but I knew with my first case, that was one thing that they used against me, is that I stopped bringing a diaper bag even though it wasn't needed. So with my second kid, I don't care what they said. I was bringing my diaper bag filled with all the stuff I would need to take care of my son. And I got yelled at by the CPS worker. They said, "You're not the mother. You can't bring that stuff," or, "You shouldn't bring that stuff. It's not your job. You're not the mom." And I'm like, I am the mother. I gave birth to my son. I have not lost my rights to my child. I still can bring this stuff, and I am going to bring it. And so they got angry, of course, and said that I wasn't following directions, even though I was proving that I could take care of my son. And I noticed one visit multiple visits with the bruises up and down his legs before he could even crawl or roll over. And I became really concerned because the bruises were up his legs and his arms, and he couldn't have done it to himself. One time I had a visit, and his pants were covered in blood, and there was a blood stain on his pants. So no one changed his pants after he bled all over them. And when I was changing his diaper, I saw the cut that was on his knee, and I saw the bruises that were all over his legs. And I took pictures. I know that I still have the pictures of the bloody pants and the cut on his leg. CPS got mad at me because I took the picture, but, they can't do anything about it because it's evidence. It's evidence to, them knowing that things happened and refused to do anything about it. He wasn't old enough to do any of those things. So to roll over or crawl or anything like that. And I noticed that they were having a hard time affording or getting baby wipes and diapers and stuff like that. So I started bringing a lot of stuff. I started bringing clothes and diapers and wipes for them to take home so that my baby was taken care of. And I did have a car seat. I offered to give them the car seat. They refused, but they couldn't afford a car seat, so they had to take one from CPS instead of my car seat, even though my car seat was a good car seat. And I even bought clothes and stuff, and I would send clothes their way and stuff like that. And then I noticed when he got a little older that he was in the wrong car seat. They were putting him in a newborn car seat at 1 years old, and he's pretty tall, a chunky baby. So his weight and his height was off, and he shouldn't have been in the car seat he was in. And I remember having that problem with my first son's case, and so when I brought it up, they got really upset and was being combative and just not being very nice. With my first son, they had him in a small car seat that wasn't meant for him. And I was in the car with them, and the lady wouldn't let me clip my kid in. And I was sitting next to my son, and they were driving, and they had to stop abruptly at a red light or a stop sign, and my son's car seat flew forward. If it wasn't for me being there to stop it, my son probably would have went through the windshield. And I immediately clipped him into the base, and I got onto the worker, and I said, this isn't okay. That was dangerous. You didn't even clip my kid in right. And she's like, "Oh, it's not that big of a deal." My kid's safety isn't that big of a deal? Really? If I wasn't there, my son would have went through the windshield. So with my second kid, they were putting my kid in the wrong car seat again. And no matter what I did, they wouldn't listen to me. I know that after a while, they started to be like, okay, yeah, she's right. And then so they changed the car seat, but they didn't like, they always tried to say that I had like a wrong car seat, but that wasn't true. Like with my first case, I had a really nice car seat that built with the child, so it would grow with the kid. So it would go from newborn and up, and it was reversible, so back and forth, front facing and back facing. So, and they said it was the wrong car seat, even though it wasn't. The only reason why she said that was because she was getting frustrated because she couldn't figure out how to set up the car seat and put it in the car. I offered to help. She got mad and said no, and then used another car seat. So with that being said, with the car seat problem, they did eventually change the car seat. But then I noticed that the formula wasn't enough for my kid. So my kid was starving essentially. And so I knew it was time to bring cereal, for like baby cereal to mix with formula. I knew it was time to do that for like a filler before we started doing like solid foods. Or mashed foods, I should say. So I kept telling them multiple times that he was starving. And for months, they didn't listen to me. I started bringing all that I could. Formula, baby cereal that mixes with the formula to thicken it so that the baby will be satiated. And so every visit I was bringing these things for my baby, and the diapers and the wipes, and making sure that my kid was well taken care of. And I was just really concerned. And no matter what I did, no one would listen. I even made several reports and been like, they can't even take care of my son. I've been doing it this whole time. You know, I've been sending them things. I've been doing this. I've been doing that. I've been giving them cute outfits and stuff like that. Sending them food and diapers and wipes and all that stuff. And my kid was starving. And I couldn't do anything about it other than send them with food and really hope that they use it. So that was a problem, and I was very concerned about that as well. And then so there was a person I was talking about in my third video about this, and I had a cousin that was very unstable, very crazy. She made me look like I had lost my mind because of her charm. She's very charming. People believe everything that she says, and this is relevant to the story. So basically, she was hunting me down. Her and her friends were harassing me and threatening me and following me. I was told multiple times that she was telling people that she was hunting me down and she was riding the bus to find me and all this other stuff. And I know what it sounds like. If you're looking on the outside and you hear everything that's been going on around about me, it sounds like I'm mentally ill and I'm paranoid and I'm like, oh my gosh, people are out to get me. They're following me. Like, it just sounds really crazy. I know that, but this is like my experience of what I was going through. And I was dealing with the animal cruelty stuff, and I was innocent, and I was dealing with this stuff with my kids, and I was just really, really overwhelmed, and I didn't feel safe. And she was showing up in places where I was doing my visits with my son. She knew certain information that she could have only gotten from a CPS worker because she had a friend that worked with CPS. So she would call CPS on people, and if she didn't like them. It didn't have anything to do with parenting. It was just like, oh, I don't like your face today. I'm going to make you lose your kids. Oh, you told me no. I'm going to make sure you lose your kids. And it's it's a really messed up situation because she was also calling CPS on people in my name. So on top of her harassing me, I then had multiple people out to get me because they thought that I was calling CPS on them and I wasn't. So she was calling CPS on other people in my name, and I was really concerned because I couldn't get anybody to take me serious. And one time I saw them on the bus, and her daughter, who is an adult, and her boyfriend, not boyfriend, like she says it's not her boyfriend, but we already know something's going on. They were riding the bus with me, and they threatened me and threatened my area. And I was like, you know what? I'm tired of this. I don't feel safe. I really need help. So I got off the bus. I went to the police station. I reported what happened, and it seemed like the police officer was listening to me, but I never had a good rap with the police. You know, they never took me serious, even when I was essayed multiple times during my homelessness. And so he said, if you have any more problems, like call me back, whatever. So I had just got out of the police parking lot, and I see the police officer driving through the parking lot, and he hadn't yet left the parking lot, but he was getting ready to drive out of the parking lot, but he wasn't fully out of the parking lot yet. And right by a certain area by the bus station, when I got out of the parking lot, they started to corner me and threaten me and yell at me and stuff like that. And I was able to get away. I ran to one of the bus stops, and I called the police again. Well, I didn't know that the police officer drove across the street and was watching me at this bus station. So all he saw was me at this bus station. And so when I called, he came back and he was like, Miss Mason, what's the problem? And I started explaining to him, and he's like, show me where it happened. And so I show him where it happened, and this is where it gets really messed up. He's like, Miss Mason, can you put your backpack down? And in my head, I was like, it must be policy. I must be making him nervous or something. So I put my backpack down, and I think he's going to take me serious and he's going to listen. But then he started reading me my Miranda rights and then arresting me. And I was really upset. And I was like, what? Like, I called you for help. This doesn't make sense. You know, I promise, like, I'm telling the truth, because he was arresting me because he didn't believe me. He said I was across the street and I was watching you and nothing happened. And I said, and there was a black spot in his theory, because he didn't see what was happening because he wasn't out of the parking lot yet. He was barely, like, he was stopped at the front of the parking lot. I literally saw him. He wasn't yet across the street when this happened to me with my cousin and her adult daughter and all those other people. So then I got arrested, and even though I was telling the truth, and I was in the back of the police car, and I was crying because all I could think about was my son and how I knew that they were going to use it against me, which they did. And I truly believe that this was also a part of their plan, because they were already on top of it. Like, they planned it, or they 100% knew every little detail. And it felt as if it was created. Like, they purposely caused these things to happen to me. And all I could think about was my kid, and not being able to be there for my kid, and knowing that they were going to use it against me, and not being able to do anything about it. CPS said, oh, she's mentally ill. She got arrested because she lied and all this other stuff. And it was like, I didn't lie. I was telling the truth. Like, and when I did get released out of jail, they did message me. So the people who were threatening me messaged me and admitted that they were there. They admitted that it happened. But then they were like, oh, like, I could have, beat you up, but, you wouldn't be worth it or whatever, but I now want to, or I wasn't going to really hurt you, but now I want to, and all this other stuff. And then you hear the not boyfriend in the background go, oh, you better be careful or she's going to call the cops on you. And so I kept all those voicemails or all those voice recordings and stuff, because it just proves that I wasn't lying. Like, they were there. They were harassing me. And I can't defend myself. I'm not a fighter. I'm more of a lover than anything. You have to really be doing something to get me so angry that I want to fight. And it has to do with people that I love, my children, and animals. I will fight someone for that, but I'm a very loving person. It takes a lot to get me to that level. So, and I'm unconfrontational. So the fact that all this is happening to me and I can't do anything about it and I can't defend myself, and so I would rant about it. I would tell anybody who would listen, then it would upset them. And they expected me just to be quiet about it and not say anything. They made me look like I had lost my mind. I agree. If I was looking at myself and I didn't know the situation, I would probably believe the psycho. Because she seemed so sweet and charming. And I was just like losing my mind because I was powerless. I was afraid. I felt like I was being attacked and I had no way to defend myself. And all it looked like is I was crazy. So the more I looked crazy, the more crazy I actually felt and kind of got. And I would like run my mouth and get myself in trouble. And my computer's dying. I want to plug that in. So it just really concerned me and I didn't know what to do. And then I got released out of jail. I spent a couple days in jail. And it wasn't the best thing in the world either. The food was gross. So don't get arrested, guys, unless you're like me and can't control it, even though you did the right thing. So yeah, it was a really stressful situation. So I was able to get released, and just thinking here about what else happened. Then my son got really sick. I'm in foster care. He got meningitis. It was really serious. The minute I found out, I immediately got to the hospital. I asked if I could stay with my baby. I was told no, even though it was risky that, he could die. They told me that I could not be there for my kid. But they would schedule visits for me to be there, but they allowed a 16-year-old child to be alone with my child, but not me. So yeah, I was a bit offended. And I saw my son a couple times while he was in the hospital. But one of the last times I was trying to go in to see my son during a scheduled visit. And this is really important because the CPS workers lied about it later. But I had came in to see my son. And the worker had met me outside. It was like, Miss Mason, I'm sorry, but you can't have a visit today. Your son's in a procedure at the hospital. Sorry, there's nothing I can do. We're going to have to schedule or cancel the visit today. And obviously I was understanding because my son was in a procedure. I don't know what procedure it was. They wouldn't tell me. So I accepted the fate. Then I got really ill. I got really sick. And I was afraid that I would get, and I think I had like bronchitis or something. And I was afraid, as I knew if I went to go see my son, I could make my son worse and he could die because he was really sensitive. And So I told my worker that I was sick and I was at the hospital. And I also went into quarantine because I was told to go into quarantine because they were going to test me and all this other stuff. So they put me in quarantine and they were testing me and stuff. And so the worker knew everything that was happening because I was updating them the whole time. And when it came to the termination hearing, which I would say more about it later on in the video, but this is important for right now, is that she tried to say I only visited my son once in the hospital, and the other times I refused to see my son. That I didn't even try to come visit my son. Never once did she bring up the fact that I was ill and I couldn't. Neither did she bring up any of the other stuff that I showed up for a visit and they canceled it because he was in a procedure. So she wasn't being honest in the courtroom. And the CASA worker, she said that it was her first time there. She's like, well, I ruled for your son to be adopted out because you don't love your son. Because if you loved your son, you would have come and visited him in the hospital. And so I explained to her the situation. She's like, oh, well, it's my first time in here. And because I told her that, because she's like, oh, well, your son's adoptable and this and that. I was like, but this isn't, foster care isn't an adoption agency. It's not meant for adoption only. And she's like, well, and I started explaining to her what foster care really is, and it's supposed to help the kids be in a safe situation where the parent gets where they need to be to safely parent. And she's like, oh, I didn't know that. It's my first time in here as a CASA worker. And I explained to her the situation, and I said, that's not true, like what they were saying, this and this and this. And she refused to do anything about it. She refused to stand up and say something else. But forwarding back to him being in the hospital, he did get out of the hospital. He was doing really well. And then they started bringing him on several vacations to the point where it was excessive, like months in vacation. And I think I even have a text message proof and screenshot of me questioning them and being like, why? This is affecting my visitation. Like, put him in a temporary foster home until they get back if they really want to go on a vacation. But this is affecting my parent-child relationship, and I haven't lost my rights yet. And so they kept bringing my son on vacation, and I was really desperate because I was low income and I really wanted to get a lawyer. So a good lawyer that actually would do their job. So the carnival, the guy who owns DreamWorks, they call it DreamWorks or something Inc., and it's the fair that comes around every season or whatever. And he literally goes to all the homeless shelters and gathers up people to work at the carnival by lying to them. He will literally say, oh, well, I'll pay you thousands of dollars and $10 an hour to set up and take down rides. And I will pay travel pay. So like if you're in a car or in the van, that he will pay you for that as well. But when I got there, the job was really hard, but I did it, and I was very fair-skinned, so I was always sunburnt and in a lot of pain. And I was allowed a break every 2 hours. That's what they told me. But when I would take these breaks, they would see me take these breaks. Like when he would do his rounds, every time he would do his rounds, I was taking my 2-hour break. And so I was getting targeted, and my managers, the boss, the owner, was like, every time I see you, you're sitting down. I'm like, yeah, because I'm taking my 2-hour break. breathing. My body hurts, I'm sunburned, and all I could tell myself is, I'm here for my kids, I'm here for my kids, I'm here for my kids, because he promised me so much money that he was never intending to pay me in the first place. So I can make a more in-depth video about my experience working for the carnival, but the way that CPS, and I maybe got $500 from that. It wasn't enough to do anything with. So basically, the way that CPS described my job, she's like, oh yeah, she was working with the carnival. Like, the way that they said it was like so majorly disrespectful. Like, I was purposely trying to get out of seeing my son, and but in reality, it was work. It was a job that I had, that I was doing a hard labor job just so that I could get a really good lawyer so that I could defend myself. And it never worked out anyways, because I didn't get paid as much as I was promised. And I ended up quitting because of the abuse that I was being suffered there. And they also said that they weren't going to pay me. And so I was like, well, what's the point? What's the point of even being here and starving to death because I didn't have the money to get food, and I could ask for an advance, a short, small advance, but that was like, there were times where I didn't have food for a couple days. And I just stayed strong. I kept telling myself I was there for my kids, and I kept pushing. Even when I had a large, I worked the ladybugs as well, but I had this big slide piece land right on top of my arms, and I had a big bruise on my arm from them not knowing how to move these things properly. I swear, these people need to actually have a license to actually do these things, because it's really, really dangerous. And it's dangerous to put them together and take them apart. So I can do a video on that. If you want me to do the video on my experience working at the fair, I can do that as well. But after that, they use it against me, even though it was a job. So it didn't go very well as planned. Then I started getting really restless, and I was also not feeling safe either, because of everything that was going on, and the animal cruelty stuff, and the article that was about me that caused me to get death threats, and my cousin Shannon and her goons, and all this other stuff. So I was really scared. And so I was like, I need to figure out a way to transfer my case out of state. Like, I'm hoping that that will help give me a chance to get away from these court people here in Montana who aren't great. And I know that there's corruption everywhere. I know that, but I felt like at the time that I needed to get away from them, because I knew it was a biased situation. I knew that the judge and everyone on the case was not good, and was never planning on giving me my kid, so I was afraid. So I moved up to Tennessee to be with my mom, hoping that it would be better. She promised she wouldn't kick me out. We would work together and stuff like that. My cousin Jan was in a good situation, and she lied to me, and I didn't know, and I told CPS about something, and it ended up being a lie, and it made me look even worse. So then, because I was defending my mom against my cousin Jan, who was taking advantage of her and abusing my mother, it was upsetting her, and my mom was getting upset about it too, so they didn't want me there anymore and kicked me out anyways. So someone that I thought was my best friend of 2 years convinced me to move up to Oklahoma. So I moved up to Oklahoma because she was trying to hook me up with this person, and it ended up not being a good situation. So within like 2 weeks, I ended up getting a bus ticket to go back to Montana. And CPS used that against me. They were like, you're bouncing around, you're this and that. And in reality, like, yeah, I was bouncing around, but it wasn't like, in my head, it wasn't like reckless, like bouncing around. It was me being afraid of them, me trying to have one leg up, trying to get where I need to be to get one foot up, basically. That's basically what I was trying to do. And no matter what I did, I couldn't get myself situated in Missoula. So when I went back to Missoula, I ended up in Dakota House, which is a house, an emergency house for people who have mental illness. And I ended up going there, and it's like a short stay. So I was having mental health issues because I knew I was losing and there was nothing I could do about it. And the same thing at the end of visits that was happening with my first son was happening with my second son. And so it was really traumatizing my son. And, you know, he would start screaming and crying and turning red after visits. And I just felt really concerned. And when I got out of Dakota House, I ended up being like, you know what? I'm going to keep this on the down low. I'm going to move to a different town in Montana so that I can get one leg up. And I'm not going to tell anybody because I know I'm going to get blacklisted. And I went a little bit more into detail about the blacklist in the third video. So I secretly moved up here, and I got a job really quickly. And then I got an apartment within 2 months. And in Missoula, I was homeless for like 5 years straight. And only one time I had an apartment, and then lost it by the time I gave birth to my second child. So when I was here, I was able to get my apartment and stuff like that within 2 months, which was 2 months before the termination hearing. So I had gotten an apartment and a job. I was doing really good, and I decided to tell CPS about it. So I told CPS all about it. They said it was a good thing and all this other stuff. And then they were like, oh, well, we're not planning on giving him back. You know, we're going to terminate your rights. So then they applied to terminate my rights, even though I had good things happening. You know, I had an apartment, I had a job, I had services that were helping me in other ways, and they would help me as a parent, and I was going through an extensive amount of parenting classes and CPR, and I was doing all those things, and it wasn't enough. They didn't care because they were already planning on taking my kid anyways. I wasn't going to get my kid back. So when I lost my kid, I thought that, you know, when I got to the Supreme Court, that I would be listened to. I don't know why I thought that, because the first time around it didn't go well either. And then I realized that the Supreme Court lawyer that I had was in on it too. So even though I had evidence and proof about what was happening and the lies and stuff like that, and I can go more into detail in other videos, but this is just a quick story time. And so basically, I tried to... So during my termination hearing, the CPS workers gave us the wrong, because we were doing it via video chat, they gave us the wrong video room. So me and my foster dad were sitting in a video room by ourselves, and we're like, the court has definitely started. So I texted my lawyer, and he goes, oh, this is where we're supposed to be. So they had already started without us, and we joined. The judge was really upset. He's like, I could let them win via, you not being here on time, or you not this. And I tried to explain to him what happened, but he didn't care. He didn't care that they put us in a wrong video room, and I think it was intentional. And then, so a lot of the stuff that I had did that was really good never went forth to show that I could parent. They just immediately took my rights. And the medical record was twisted. So the therapist, because of my spirituality, thought that I might be schizophrenic. But then I wasn't fully diagnosed with that. She said, you're not schizophrenic. It was just a note. But CPS ran with schizophrenia, and that's one reason why they wouldn't give me my kid back, even though I had all this going for me. And so when the Supreme Court lawyer, he wouldn't send any of the proof and evidence that I had to the Supreme Court. All he said was there's no evidence, even though there was. He just ignored them and stepped down from the case. I was left trying to figure it out on my own. I didn't even know how to get a Supreme Court judge, so it was just left in the air, and I didn't have money for a lawyer. So they closed the case on me, and my son was adopted out, and there was nothing I could do about it. And then the longer I went without my children, the more my mental health went down in the dumps. I really struggled. I started being destructive again, and shutting down, not taking care of myself, like barely at all. I developed an eating disorder, and my autoimmune disorder decided to peek its head. I didn't know, because apparently it's hereditary. So it was always inside me, but it wasn't prevalent until my eating disorder started building up. And I can talk a little bit more about my eating disorder in another video, but it's basically just a binge eating disorder. So I can do that later when I get the chance, if you guys want me to, and I can go into depth about that. But now, I've been in and out of a place called Pathways for my mental health, because I've been struggling mentally, in and out of psychiatric places, and I'm currently on a small dose of medication that I'm taking mindfully. I don't normally agree with medication, but it was kind of an emergency that I take it. I'm also on my Hashimoto's and thyroid medication as well, and I need that until I'm able to fully take care of myself. And so I'm not going to be on this medication forever. I know it's not good for my body. I'm just doing it to keep myself under control and stuff like that, and get the help I need through mental health services as much as I can. And I'm really trying to elevate my life and build my business and do the things I need to do. Currently, I'm trying to earn my driver's license and get a car. So that's definitely a big step for me. I'm learning how to drive, and that for me with anxiety is so hard, because like when a car comes up next to me or a pedestrian is nearby while I'm driving, it just makes me so scared that I'm going to hit them, and even though I don't want to. And so it's definitely, hopefully after several classes that I do, it will definitely be a little bit easier for me. But that is definitely a goal that I'm trying to achieve. I'm trying to maybe try to get into some schooling. I'm not sure if I'm actually going to do that yet. So yeah, I can do a current story time about you know, how things are going right now, all my future goals, stuff like that. So we can talk about that. If you want me to talk about anything more in detail, part of the story, just ask in the comments, and I will be happy to make those videos for you. All right, thank you for being here for this video, and I will see you next time for the next video. Bye.